Welcome to Altair, gentlemen. I am to transport you to the residence. If you do not speak English, I am at your disposal with 187 other languages along with their various dialects and subtongues. For your convenience, I am monitored to respond to the name Robbie. Danger, danger. My power sounds are extremely low.
Stories I can tell you about Australia with Richard. Well, one thing I'm going to tell. No, you don't do that. When we were over in Australia, I arrived in Australia before he did. And I said, let me see Dick's suite. And they said, what do you want to see his suite? You get your own. I said, please, would you let me see Dick's suite? And they opened the door, and there was Dick's suite, and I put a picture in his bathroom on the toilet seat. So when he came in,
on the underside of the toilet seat. When I checked into the hotel, there's an 8x10 picture of Bob made.
I said, you're looking swell. Welcome to Australia.
Now, I know Bob has been in the toilet many times in his life, but I did not expect to see him there in Australia.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce people that are very, very close to me and also Richard. First of all, joining the cast is Francine York. Mike Christian. Our little doll, Angela Cartwright. And someone who's done more for me in letting the public know who I am, please give a welcome to Miss June Lockhart. Now, they said we were supposed to get up here and talk and answer any old questions you throw at us, so by all means do. Yes. No.
Show hands.
Hands.
Come on, for the original concept of Lost in Space, or as it turned into a comedy show later in the later years. Okay? Who's going to take that one?
I have one comment about that. In the original, when we did the pilot, there were like 5 major things that happened, like an earthquake, a whirlpool, all these climate things. Yes. Billy and I had a great time doing we like the tossing around in the chariot, the water. We always try to get the wettest of anybody, I mean, we were kids, and it was fun to do that. Or in the earthquake, in the tunnel, where Guy, he shot us all with his laser gun. We had to reshoot the whole scene again. By mistake, he had the laser on. But we like that. We like that adventure of that. So any of the ones that had that kind of fun stuff to do, we liked.
As a matter of fact, when we did the pilot scene and we were in that temple and the dust and everything was falling down and the sets were wiggling back and forth and we were hurling ourselves around, and Irwin was directing this, and when we were all supposed to lurch in one direction, Irwin would beat with a hammer on the bottom of a tin garbage pail. I'm not kidding. I don't make this stuff up. And when I commented on this, somebody said, you should have been here on the last feature he did. He used to fire a gun when he wanted everybody to rock and roll back and forth. But in this particular thing, we were, the prop men were up there dumping Fuller's Earth down on us as we shot this thing, and finally he yells, cut. And we've been screaming, Guy and I, looking for Will Penny, and everything stops. And Irwin is heard to call out, the debris was beautiful. And I looked at Guy and he looked at me. This is the pilot now. I said, we are in trouble. Yes. Haven't answered your question, have we?
Did any of you ever hear the story about how I became the voice of the robot?
No, tell us.
This is an IRWIN Allen story also.
Oh, yeah.
I was the narrator on the show, and one day my agent called up and said, "Irwin would like to meet you at the looping room at 20th Century Fox at Thursday at 2 o'clock. So I said, "Well, why?" And he said, "Well, there's a robot voice and they're looking for a robot voice." I said, "Okay." I said, "I'm the narrator." He said, "That's okay. You'll still be the narrator, but they're looking for a robot voice." Okay. So I meet Irwin, and I said, "I presume, Irwin, what you are looking for here is a mechanical, robotian kind of sound."
Robotian.
And Irwin says, "My dear boy." He said, "That is exactly what I am not looking for." He said, "This is a highly advanced civilization in a highly advanced culture. I want a
1997.
he says, I want a low-key, don't color the words, Alexander Scourby kind of approach." Scourby being the marvelous New York narrator on the National Geographic specials, great cultured sound. He said, something like Hal in 2001. I said, "Oh, okay." So now I'm reading the lines, and I'm doing my best Scourby imitation. And I'm saying, without coloring the words, quietly, "Danger, warning, that does not compute. Danger, will Robin." "No," he said, "that's not it. Do it again. Do it again. No, that's not it. Do this for 10 minutes. "Well," he said, "I'll tell you what, you're still the narrator on the show. We're not getting this." He said, "I have to look further." I said, "I understand, no problem." And I pack up my attaché case. And I had no idea why I did this. I said, "Irwin, before I leave, let me try one thing." And now, in my best Alexander Scourby imitation, I say, "Warning, danger." Jesus Christ, that's the Alexander Scourby approach I wanted. What the hell took you so long?
Recharge your solar power.
We're working at Guitar Center permission. If really everybody can each other with their permission. Yeah, and because it's a rock and roll.
Finally this evening, it's an out-of-this-world convention in very down-to-earth Pasadena. More than 100 stars of science fiction TV shows and movies are attending STARCON 97. It's a two-day sci-fi convention with everything from memorabilia to panel discussions. The crew at Lost in Space held a meeting today with the show's fans to discuss what really went on behind the scenes. You probably recognize actress Jude Lockhart, but who's the man next to her? Bob May, of course, the man inside the robot. The convention continues tomorrow from 10 to 5.
Jude Lockhart looks great. Bob May looks even better than he did on the show.
Yes, not quite so rough around the edge. Yes.
This is Terry Monroe.
Terry Becker, ladies and gentlemen. Del Monroe. Ellen Hunt. Hopefully Paul Carr. And where's Victor London?
Yeah, the Lobster Man.
Where's the Lobster Man? The cast of Voice of the Bottom of the Sea, of course.
He's on the bottom of the sea. Yeah, he's still there.
Guys, for everyone's edification, when I yell action, we'll all sway to the left, and then we'll say, action! Okay, sorry, I didn't do that.
Yes. I can only do that if Richard
Victor London, ladies and gentlemen, the Lobster Man. Still some Paul Carr.
There he is.
Paul Carr, ladies and gentlemen, who gets eaten by a dinosaur. And several voices about He got eaten by a dinosaur. In all fairness to them, because they were scheduled for a later panel, we are still going to have that that voyage panel, unless we just keep going right on through.
We've got a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about here. So if we cut it short, don't worry about it, because if we do that, they will be back and we will pick up the panel where we left off. So, guys, what are you up to these days? What'd you do for the summer vacations?
Well, I went to camp. Learned how to swim and things like that.
How about the audience? Have any questions from people out there?
Yeah.
I was active with the Marine Corps through, I think it's a 6-year obligation past that, through the reserves and so forth. But at the time of that buildup, there was a 2-year enlistment, an unusual 2-year enlistment. Usually it's 3 years or 4 years with the various branches of the service. And I was going to be drafted within about 4 months, I found out. There was no way I could change that. And even dear Mr. Allen, IRWIN Allen, wrote a letter on my behalf asking if I could stay and just be in the reserve so I could stay local and stay on the show. But that was a time when they were taking any case. So I then just enlisted. And then when I got out in '68, as I said, the voyage had just been canceled.
Well, we missed it, didn't we?
Yeah.
Great show.
What were the years of the run?
It's 64 to 68, wasn't it?
Right.
Because Terry and I joined the cast in the second year, which was 65, and the first year was in black and white, as you may know, and that's when Paul was on the show. And then the second year, our uniforms changed, and Dels was in a red jumpsuit, I was in a blue jumpsuit, and then it became more futuristic. And as you remember, the sub changed also, I think. And the observation nose, the flying sub was added that same year. And so forth.
Well, once Alan and I got on the show, they had to put us in color.
And the quality naturally went up.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever IRWIN had somebody getting hysterical on the show, he'd say, hey, let's call Paul. So he thought I did hysteria well. I was, basically suppressing my hysteria all the time. So he called, I did a lot of those, and then I found myself in a couple of shows that I hadn't actually shot. Because he would take pieces of the show and he'd put it into another show. And I'd get a check for $100. Oh, I guess I did another voyage that I didn't know about.
The character name changed to your
I think the cat
one time.
Well, I did try to. I remember I got a script and I said, this is not the same character, of course. So I went to what's his name, Bill. I can't remember the story editor.
Bill Welsh.
Bill Welsh. And I said, Bill, I'm playing this character, and I said, you ought to change it to the guy. And he did one time. So I guess one time he didn't. I'm not sure. They got to be a little. And then I was eaten by a dinosaur. That's how they finally got rid of me.
I thought you were
Can't stand this guy anyway.
I thought the lobster man had you.
No. I got a dinosaur. I killed the lobster man.
Not quite.
Oh.
And we had the lobster man. We ate it.
Captain Admiral, give me some drawn butter.
I melted the butter.
Can I tell you how the lobster man came about? And this is really something that maybe, I think I told it to maybe my mother and a couple of people. But I got a call from IRWIN to get a sense of humor. And I had just done another show, yeah, sense of humor, of course. I had done a show, one of the segments called The Menfish. Anybody remembers that?
Sure.
Yeah. But I was the scientist assistant to John Dare. Remember I wore a neck brace? And IRWIN got mad at me and said, what do you think we're doing, Playhouse 90? Because I was in a dramatic scene, you know? And if you were too dramatic, you didn't like that. So to get even with me, I guess, he called me and said, can you do an English accent? I said, of course I can. He said, well, report for makeup, such and such day. And I came in around 6 in the morning, cup of coffee in my hand, and everything went dark, except for the two little slits, and I looked, and it has this lobster head on me. and they marched me over with this wetsuit. I could hardly walk. My mother, if she were alive, she wouldn't have recognized me. And I said, Erwin, I said, this is what you want me to wear? At least cut away some, good recognition here. And that's how they conned me. I said, well, what do you want this English accent for? He said, well, I thought it would be charming if you have an English lobster.
It's supposed to be English soul. Fish and chips. Fish and chips.
Fish and chips.
Covers a French fry.
Gentlemen Rowe, I read in the book, this goes all the way back to the Voyage feature, that you were, when you were going, I guess, out across the moon onto the set for the original feature, that you had a mishap there. Is that true, that story?
Yeah, how did that come about? Yeah.
It actually is only in one book on Voyage.
It was a scene with Walter Pidgeon, Joan Fontaine, Peter Lorre, all these people that I had seen all my life in films. And I was somewhat intimidated doing my first scene in a film before these people, with these people. So Erwin told me what he wanted out of the scene. It was a scene where I talked the men into mutiny from the submarine. So I walked out, they had a little, just in the moat now, and it was about 6 feet deep. There was a raft out there with a plank going out to the raft. So I walked out on this little raft, and I was walking back and forth trying to memorize the lines and my motivation, and I walked right off into and the last thing he said over his loudspeaker, he said, "Don't anybody fall into the water because it's polluted." He walked me back to the medical to have me cleaned up, and as I walked back, I had to walk by all these people I just mentioned. Look at this. Oh, Dal, not you. That was embarrassing.
Can you compare filming then with filming now? Have you been involved? Any of you have been involved in any of the newer Star Treks or anything like that, as compared to what the technology was back then?
I'm doing Babylon 5 now. Has everybody seen me in the show?
Yeah.
Everything is with an in-house camera and video, and everything is monitored. They know beforehand pretty much what they're going to shoot. It's very, very concise and very kind of high-tech to the point. So the intimacy is kind of gone. You don't really have the same kind of relationship with the director unless he's an old-fashioned director. Things have changed in that degree. And it has to do with budgets, because a lot of these shows are now cable, and they don't have the money to pay that they, even though some years ago, whatever that money was then, that hasn't increased that much now if you do a syndicated show. Network, yes. Syndicated. That's the big change I've noticed.
And especially technically, they've got hydraulic platforms, so they can build a submarine on a platform and tilt the whole sound stage for turbulence. You don't have to go left and
Stomp. Remember the Seaview Stomp?
Yeah, tell that story,
The
Paul.
camera, and then we would tilt.
Earl would come down to the set whenever we were going to rock the submarine, and he had a tin can, literally a tin can and a hammer. So, all right, he says, now when I bang it once, everybody goes to the left, and the camera goes to the right. Anybody get hurt? Anybody get hurt? Now we go to the right. And at the end of 4 years, that tin can was a mission. We enjoyed that.
Just to add a little bit to this, because I didn't want to get hurt on the show. I thought I was an actor, not a stuntman. So every time we did that, rock and roll, I would find Baysar, and I'd jump on him. I'd fall on him, and he'd just, "What are you doing?" "Well, you're softer." And I kind of protected myself.
You still banged your head. What was that incident where you
Oh,
banged your head?
Well, at the end, when I joined Voyage, I had a meeting with Erwin, and Erwin said, I'm gonna give you minimum. Oh, okay, but you have to prove yourself. And if you prove yourself, I'll give you a raise. Okay. I did the first year, and I was kind of successful on the first year. And I go up to him just before the last show, and I said, what about the raise? He said, what raise? Well, you told me if I prove oh, no. I said, I'll quit. He said, what? I'm quitting, that's it. You're gonna have to kill me off. Okay, if that's what you want, you're dead, okay? So, do the show, and it's the last show of the second year, and somebody throws a grenade, and I throw myself at the grenade, and that's the end of the show. I'm dead. Now he's looking around for somebody to replace me, and Harry Harris, who was directing the first show of that third year, he sat there for days. Everybody would come in, every character actor in town came in for this part, and he said, no, he's not my show. No, that's not my show. And Harry finally turned around to Irwin and said, well, get Terry Becker and let's finish this. Well, we had another negotiations with Terry. We were quibbling about $10, and it's ridiculous. He says, okay, are you with us again? I said, yes, okay. I said, what happened? I fell on the grenade. Oh, yes. I'm dead.
There are several episodes where Bayside and I would get together. There's the one where he finally squeezes out of me that my name is Francis. And I'm, pissed off about Francis. And those moments, those scenes are what I remember best. And the shows, I honestly don't remember them.
Likewise, I don't think I had a particular show that I was more fond of. I was just happy to be working.
Yeah,
I did 109 of those shows. And I remember Paul Trink, who played Patterson, that every Thursday we run backstage where the special effects guys were. And they would have the script for the next show. We just want to see if we were in the next show. So that was our favorite moment of the whole, to see if we were in the next show.
Pretty much the same, I guess. I felt like whenever they called me to come and do another one, I would get pretty excited. I loved it. I kind of like the last one that I did, where I got eaten by the dinosaur. It was kind of funny, but I got Paul and Del and I and I think David, the four of us were on this dinosaur island during the entire show, and so we had a lot of fun playing with all that stuff. That's all I remember about that. But as Del said, just the idea of going to work every day.
But Paul Carr and I had done other shows together. We did, and we played brothers. And they always made me the older brother. Don't you think he looks older than me?
Oh, come on, tell the truth.
I had a question for Del. You were the only one that came from the feature film to the TV series. Had you worked at all for Irwin on any other projects in between that? How did he remember you? And once you're on the series, did you have a contract?
Well, for the first part, after I'd done the film, and the film had been released, and I think it was a couple years between the film and the pilot. And some actor friends of mine told me they read in the trade paper, which is the Hollywood Reporter, that they were going to do a pilot on Voyage. So I went out to 20th Century Fox on getting to see Irwin. He says, "Hi, Dal." He says, "We're going to do a pilot on Voyage." I said, "That's what I'm here to see." He says, "Oh, yeah." And that's how it came about. I didn't really have a contract the first year. If you remember those black and white shows, you had about 6 of us actors around, myself, and Paul Trinka, and Chris Conley, and I had the feeling that he didn't know what to do with us. He wanted to do something, but he didn't know how to place us. I think I lasted because I think the name helped the character, Kowalski. I think there was something draw about that. Plus, I had a tough time remembering certain things, and it kind of went with the character. But then later on, every time my agent asked for a raise, no, we'll just give Dal more shows. So by the last year, I was doing 26 out of 26.
Still getting $50.
Yeah.
We know Terry's first name on the show, but I think many characters on Voyage did not have first names. Do you have any secret knowledge of what those characters' names were that were just never used?
Since I came back intermittently, I think my first name used to change from show to show. I don't remember.
I was Stu Riley.
Yeah.
Stu Riley was always the, in fact, for some reason they changed it. When I was first cast, it was Stu Casey. And I don't know why it became Riley, but it did. By the time we did the first episode, he was suddenly Stu Riley. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, Kowalski never had a first name. In fact, there was a time there when they were going to ask fans to write in suggesting a first name, which would have been a great publicity ploy for the show, which never materialized. But I used to always think of myself as Stan Kowalski, like Brando in Streetcar Named Desire.
I always thought it was Ignatz.
What was that again?
Ignatz.
Watch it, you're getting close.
Because we always called you Ski anyway. Everyone called you Ski.
Right.
Eugene Kowalski.
I can see that on the marquee, Eugene Kowalski.
Or Stewart.
Just, I wondered, of course you weren't all on the show at the same time, but if any of you have any memories of two other old-time actors who guest starred, Victor Delano and Michael Dunn. I don't know if any of you and all the guest stars on the show. I remember those two episodes a lot.
Yeah, Victor.
Yeah.
The cyborgs.
Yeah, the cyber.
Jory.
Victor Jory. Yeah, from Now We Win.
Yeah, Base Out and I had to go out and open up his sports center. And he gave me, for that personal appearance, I got fishing rods. I don't go fishing, you know what I mean? I got rods I can catch whales with. But he was a nice man. Had false teeth.
Yeah, Victor Bono, I know, was on that episode of Cyborgs, and the actor that Del mentioned, Alfred Ryder, then did an episode with us about the U2, the Phantom, which was such a big hit. They did a sequel to that. Only two-parter I ever knew of that Voyage did.
He's a terrific guy. We sat there one time and we were talking, and someone said, "Do you remember what you said in essence?" And Ryder looked at the guy and he said, "Are you kidding? If I had all that junk in my head, I'd be a nut. I'd say it and it's gone." I remember that. It was nice.
John Cassavetes did an episode of Voyage too.
Yes.
I hear much talk about it, but he was on one time.
Yes.
And hated every minute of it. I remember he was lamenting in the commissary of, "Why am I doing?" I think he was trying to finance a film or something. But I heard him say to Richard, how do you say this stuff and all that.
We didn't get the money to finance a film from this show. Yes, ma'am.
Do you all have any memories of working with Irwin Allen, any of the nicer stories?
There must be one.
I'd love to tell one that David told me. I wasn't there, but David told it. It was about Bob Dowdell. Did you guys, do you have one too? I don't know, but stories about Irwin Allen are legion, and I'm sure everyone has a million of them, but you might get a kick out of this. David Hedison told me that when Bob Dowdell was being considered for the role of Chip Morton, he had submitted some footage, which is what an actor does when you're trying to be considered for another role. You show an episode of some other thing that you've done, and so forth. And according to David, Irwin Allen said, "You want to go with me? I'm going to go look at footage on Chip Morton." So David said, "Sure." So they went into this little screening room at 20th, and there was an episode of an old Jack Lord show called Stony Burke, in which Bob Dowdell is this
this dying rodeo guy. He's been broken into a million pieces, and it's a death scene. He's lying in this guy's arms. He's doing one of those, you know, tell Laura I love her scenes. And all throughout the scene, David said he was so impressed. He kept looking over at IRWIN Allen to see what his reaction was. And he said that Allen was just staring at the screen, real deadpan like that. And Dowdell is squirming and he's writhing and he finally dies. And the scene's over, and so the lights come back up, and IRWIN Allen is still staring at the screen. And David said, I looked over to him and I said, that's pretty good, don't you think? And he said that IRWIN Allen went, I don't like him. And he said, what? Why not? And he goes, he doesn't have a sense of humor. Somehow they got the part, but I mean, just how much humor are you supposed to have when you're dying so many times? I don't know. That's one thing I remember.
Speaking of having no sense of humor, I was just telling a story, it was apropos of nothing, it was a silly story. It was years after the show was off the air, I was dating this lady who was a photographer, who was shooting, used to shoot on sets, and she had just been working on one of IRWIN's pictures. And she was on the plane with IRWIN coming back to Los Angeles, and I went to meet her at the airport. And the show had been off the air for a couple of years. I had worked for IRWIN since, but on a couple of other things. I was standing there waiting for her, and IRWIN walked off the plane with his wife, and he looked at me, and he didn't say, hello, Paul, or how are you, hey, you know, other things. He looked at me and he said, what are you doing here? Like, I wasn't supposed to be there. He wasn't expecting me there, and he didn't want me to be there. I said, I'm waiting for this lady. Oh, all right. And they walked away from me.
A little paranoid. Okay. Just okay. He thought you were there for his part.
That's it. He thought I was, you know, if I was there, I had to drive him or something. I don't know.
Did you tell how you were killed at the end of the second season?
I told that this morning, and I don't know how it'll play here.
Pretty much the same room.
Yeah, the same.
Yeah, we do it to
Pardon? Change the facts. We can play it backwards, but you wouldn't understand it. It sounds Swedish. But IRWIN, you know, you can make a lot of fun out of IRWIN because he was so tunnel visioned and such a little. He was a little boy in many ways, and a sophisticated little boy, which is a terrible thing to be. He was an enigma, encased in a bald head. That's all I can say.
I can verify the Lost in Space people said the same thing about being an overrun little boy. So
Yeah.
It's been a widespread impression.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And he wanted everybody, you see, I didn't get along well with IRWIN because I was stupid. I kind of had a big mouth, and I said what I wanted to say, and and I did what I thought I had to do, and what I was getting paid to do, rather than to be a pal of IRWIN Allen's. And so he didn't like me very much. So he never called me after the show. He called Del. Del was very nice.
No, that's not really true. I didn't do a project. He was going to do Land of the Giants, and he wanted me for a part in that particular show. And there was a confrontation between him and my agent, and they couldn't come to terms, whatever it was, and I ended up not doing the show. Later on, he moved it to Warner Brothers. He was going to do The Bees or something, some film. Swarm. Mm-hmm. So I went over there to see him, and the secretary announced me, and I could see through the open door IRWIN behind the desk. And she says, Del Monroe is here. And he says, who? He says, Del Monroe. He says, oh. And he took the thing and he went out the back door. That happened to me a couple of times. So I kind of got the message.
Well, you see, you just bore out what I said. You asked him for a little more money. Your agent, said, we want more money for Dell, and that was it.
I guess.
He didn't have a whole hell of a lot of humor, that's what it is.
No.
Well, that's interesting. You know, we had a guest star, and I forget the guest star's name now because it's been 30 years ago. And he came down to the set, and we're all sitting around, Dave, Richard, and David, you and I, and the guest star says, you know, I don't think Irwin Allen likes him. He was hard to do the show. So next day, Irwin Allen walks on the set, and David or Richard said, made the comment, says, you know, so-and-so's down here, and said, made the comment, he doesn't think you like him. He says, what I have to like him? I hired him. That was his, kind of his personality.
Yeah.
You guys remember working with Vincent Price?
Oh, yeah.
That had to be something.
Yeah. Well, I like working with a lot of those older actors because, see, they were what I am now. I mean, they were. But, I used to love listening to those old stories. One of the actors I enjoyed working with, a character I named Charlie McGraw. Yeah, he did a lot of motion pictures with. He had that deep voice. He played a lot of heavies. He did films with Robert Mitchum. And I used to love hearing those old stories about these guys. And so I loved working with those old actors. It was a lot of fun.
This is a stupid question, but everyone asks it, and I'm for some reason curious. Do you folks communicate at all? You know, other than being here at this convention, do you ever, you know, talk to each other or on the internet or go out for coffee or?
What? You kidding?
No, Terry never picks up the tab. So
He never picks up the tabs, anyway. No, we, this is the first time I've seen these guys in about 30 years.
Well, by coincidence though, I was coaching one of my kids in Little League, and Terry's kid was on my team. Out of the blue. It was so funny when we saw each other that day. Because there's 8 teams in the league, and it could have been any team, but it was ours. So we did see each other a couple of times. No, and I been in touch. And Paul and I know each other for other, like through tennis and stuff, just friends that we know.
And he never played my kid, too. He never played my kid.
Alan, Paul and Alan and I, we've been in theater group together. Yeah. We've done a lot of work together.
But this is a very big town, and it's a very big place, and people hide. I mean, you lose yourself. You lose contact with friends, and most people think that everyone in the business knows one another because they see us on a show like what's his name? That guy who comes out on CNN. King, Alan King, and everybody. Larry King. What did I say? Alan King. That's another guy.
Well, I had a hard time with lines.
No, I had a terrible time with lines. That's all right. Anyway, and everybody seems, hey, how are you? And they kiss and hug, but they don't know each other. You see, so
a lot of people in Hollywood kiss and hug. It's that kind of
yeah, it's a touchy-feely business.
They got their way in their subs.
Well,
actually, we're too close to that subject.
Well, yeah, there was a reason for that. We couldn't, we had to rub butts as we went there.
No women in the regular cast.
Pardon?
No women in the regular cast.
That was unfortunate.
Yes. They were all mermaids.
You know, there was one, for one episode, they tried it. Do you remember the one with Ina Balin? There was a girl who was assisting David, and it didn't work out. It was, Irwin liked her, and nobody else did, and the audience didn't either. Do you remember this girl? She was like a personal secretary to him. But Richard kept wanting to, I'm sorry, Terry, Richard kept wanting the shows to get off the boat. He kept wanting to get on the land somehow. And we did that one, Escape from Venice, which was all spy stuff and trying to catch down the James Bond stuff. And we were all off the submarine. But I remember in this one, I forgot the name of the episode, but Ina Balin was the guest. And there was a redhead girl for one episode. In answer to that, they did try that. No, not Giascala. This is
Susan Sullivan?
I can't remember her name.
No, it was Bates, Barbara Bates, or something like that. In that first show.
Yeah. Oh, no. You're talking about the Jonah and the Whale one?
Robert Goldberg.
We could actually
keep that same group of fellas. Because
Yeah.
they all appear.
On time zone.
One time.
What their monsters
They wore
did.
your outfits.
Or some other things we did. Well, good morning, good afternoon, I guess now.
Yes,
We're
it is.
supposed to be 11:30, did you say, Jeff?
11:45.
Boy, I tell you, talk about Cavalier, here we are, 2 hours late.
The tunnel must be broken.
We owe you. 2 free questions. So,
The time zone was on Eastern Standard Time. That's what it was, and there was a displacement. Yes, sir.
Speaking of what you were just saying about the cast being on your show, what was that like on the lot between all the shows going on at the same time? Was there much interaction between the cast or running into
well, we'd run around like fans and visit all the other stages,
Oh,
and
yes.
they'd come over and visit us. We had,
Fun to go over to, especially for me anyway, Lost in Space. I just love
well, for me, paid in place. That shows you why.
Forget the science fiction. Where are the girls?
That was the story of my life, Dayton. I want to go over to see the story of Lockwood. What's he doing? And who's he doing it to?
So bad. It wasn't, he really wasn't that bad. It really wasn't that bad. He talks a big story now.
I have a question.
Yes.
I've never been able to figure this out. Right before they transferred you, at the end of every episode, it's always put your original clothes back on you. Was there a reason for this?
Because either that or fly naked.
I didn't understand. Just moving
Well,
them is one thing.
it saved a day of filming because they would have to film an entirely new series of, and that was very difficult to do because they were all wired and everything and they had to tumble. And that was, so that they just were able to use that over and over and over and over again, saved a lot of money, a lot of time. This is the bottom line, it usually is money, you know, and that's.
And then there's also the theory that once having been sucked back into the vortex of time,
Yes.
we naturally put on the threads of that particular era. We have other Yes.
I have a question for you.
Debbie, Joyce. Debbie, Joyce.
Whichever. I had read once where, I don't know which one of you had said it, someone quoted you saying that you passed by the tunnel for the first time and it had an optical effect that made you nauseous or something, it made you dizzy. It had a funny...
Right up to payday, no.
Oh, no. I'm serious. Am I correct in that?
Did you get a vertigo in there or anything?
No, I don't remember ever.
Were there any accidents involved with the tunnel?
Yeah, we had a couple of them.
I think so. Well, I know Victor Jory played a pirate, didn't he?
Yeah.
He grabbed me and held me captive for, I really can't remember the entire episode, but he scraped me against one of the balustrades and it was made to look like concrete, but it was just sand coated plywood, you know, sprayed. So it was like sand, I mean, the worst, heaviest sandpaper. So my knees were just ripped to shreds by that. And a knife, Merlin, I think, Merlin's knife, dug into my wrist at one point. Those are the only ones that I remember.
But being a magician, he can immediately remove the scar. Why she has no scars on her? We're not guaranteed it. I know we had a couple of little incidents of, they sent me off one day after one of the fights where we all had doubles, of course, but most of the time we'd come in and pretty much choreograph the whole fight scene, and the doubles would do the master, and then you'd come in and do most of the close-up stuff. Well, this one time, Timmy and I brought off the fight, which we did every week. And pretty good for a scientist, you know. Futuristic scientist, it was hard to find a guy who could fight as good as I could with a doctor's degree. It was the Hawaiian night, I'd go down and punch out the bag, and the instructor, you know, I want to be a doctor so I can kill somebody. But this bench came flying out of the thing, and it hits me right in the head. I mean, a big bench, like a picnic bench kind of thing, and about 8 stitches in my head, and I swear I was back on that set in an hour filming. They had me sewn up, made up, and the little lump was a lot of you. seeing the stars. I watched the show. But boy, they just stitch you up and stick you right back in if they could, you know, if you were hurt.
We had a horrible accident was to Whit.
Really?
Because Whit had the plug. You remember the
Oh,
wadding from the gun? That's when they started. Now they do it as a regular practice. If someone shoots a gun off camera, I mean, on camera at you, supposedly, they have cameras here. The person that you're going to be shooting usually is standing right there, giving you the line, saying, "You dirty, blah, blah, blah," whatever. Well, now there's a plastic shield. They didn't have one with Whit.
Well,
and the wadding, because it was a fake bullet, but the wadding hit the corner of his eye and dislocated, what's it called? His retina. And so he had limited sight afterwards.
Yeah. Once when I was doing Maverick, we had a scene where, you know, the craft service people and the ones who put those special effects together, they're really very talented, capable people. But we had this scene once in Maverick, I dived through this window, and then we look back up to see what's happening. This guy runs in the door with a sawed-off shotgun, and he shoots at us, and it splatters all over the window. You can see the window sill explode as well. I dive through the window, I come back up, the window explodes because it's all cameras on me, and 100 pieces of this balsa wood went into my face and into my eyes, didn't hit any of the vital spots, but I had at least 100 pieces of slivers in my face. I looked just like little blood dripping everywhere. I thought I was destroyed, and Kelly took the slivers out. There was nothing wrong with the eyes, and I had little bloodshot for weeks, but that was as close as I ever really got to being hurt. But it's, you know, you're always vulnerable because you're doing such crazy stuff you don't do in real life, you know. And you get hurt from time to time.
How did you all get involved into coming into it? What were your stories getting involved into it?
We were already involved with the project when the pilot film started. I was a scientist. They never had a advanced storyline given to us. At least for me anyway, I was given, as we went along, and said, well, now if I'm and they never really said what I was, so I made mine up. I was a nuclear biochemist. Then I decided, well, I'm going to be a nuclear physicist with this is a lot of years ago, and I haven't thought of this since, but I made up a whole thing of what I was with all the initials past my name, and it was fun. But, you know, no, it was never mentioned in any of the scripts, so.
Well, we knew, Doc. We knew.
Oh, yes. It is.
I got a question. How long was the tunnel?
Oh, as long as this room.
I would say maybe about 10 feet short, don't you think?
Well, you see, Lee, remember when...
because they opened the next sound
when
stage.
they opened the next sound stage and put the second half of the tunnel on, then it was longer than this.
They had the optical illusion.
The actual one they worked with most of the time was about 3/4 the length of this room. And about, I would think, the circumference of this.
Easily, yes.
Just the tunnel? Just the tunnel?
Yeah, it was big, you know.
It was very exciting. And then when we saw the pilot film and we saw where we actually were, because we had no idea that we were, you know, that far, and that there were things going on up above us and below us and down, and, you know, it was very exciting. It was thrilling because at that time, that was very far advanced, and the artwork that was done then.
They called them graphics, was it? Matte shots.
Matte shots, all those.
And they did some beautiful. Imagine what they could do today with something like a time tunnel. They could really make it sing with all the computer graphics and things. It'd be very exciting. They'll do it. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. If either of you ever watched Quantum Leap or had any thoughts about how it compared to your show. I heard a story where James Darren once met Scott Bakula and talked it over a little bit, but if either of you had any thoughts on that.
Oh, yes, but when I saw the series for the first time, I said,
Yeah.
that's our show. It's not fair. What's his name? Baldessari? No, the producer.
Belisario.
Belisario.
Yeah.
But,
Not Alex, but,
no, another series.
Magnum,
Yes, I think you're right.
How did you find out that the show was canceled, and what were your feelings at that time?
I was home having a martini, I think. So I had two, let me know.
I was on the lot doing something, I can't remember what. We had a party, so that we were picked up, as far as we were concerned, or at least I was concerned, we were picked up, and we were going another season. And a guy on the back of a gripped truck, hanging on to a lamp stanchion, was just driving by, and he says, "We're going to miss you around here, Lee." I thought he meant for the vacation time, you know, there's a hiatus.
One day is too much without a lead.
He knew that this was over.
Oh, well, we'd been in hiatus for a month or more before they canceled it. They picked it up, and you know, there were like 240 some people involved in the show, the various crafts and services involved in making a film. 240 some people were all elated that they were coming back, and the kids were going to be fed and everything for another year. And of course, we were just happy as a clown to be able to have another shot at it, because the first year is always the roughest. And I always felt if we could have stayed with it a little while and really got into it, we could have made it so much more than the first year was capable of. But I didn't get to see it, but we all enjoyed the show a lot. Lee more than me, because she only had to work one day a week. Boy, did we envy her.
It was the best of all possible worlds. Most of our scenes were able to be done in one day. John's room and I would come in and we just zip through.
Yeah.
But the only problem was that we never knew. I mean, if we came in at the end of the week or at the end of the shooting for that particular episode, then the director was able to say, when I asked, well, where is the neck? I mean, where is the knife on Bob's neck? I mean, how close is it? Because there's Doug, you know, I mean, if it's this close or that, you know, or it's, you know, the guy's across the room, then it's Doug, you know, and sometimes.
Her volume was directly coordinated to the space between the threads.
Exactly, it was just really bizarre, and I'd ask the director, we would all be concerned as to how much do we do? Is it enough? Is it too much? And he would say, well, we haven't shot that yet. I don't know. And so then Whit and I and John Zaremba, bless his soul, we would say, okay, shall we give them variation A, B, or C? And then we got to the point where we could say, well, just in case, let's do another one where it's like imminent danger. I mean, like, right there.
It's 33 feet
so
away.
we all just, you know, and Whit would look like this, and John would turn dials and like this, and I'd go, we did a lot of that. Some of the worst acting I've ever done in my life. But, you know. Just that he was so dear. Well, they both were dear. Which had, oh yes, oh definitely. Both major sense of humor and a history in the business, so that whenever I was able to, talk to them when we weren't emoting, I was able to, ask questions about their experiences in the business and all. And it was just great fun getting to know them. Dear men, they really were. I miss them.
Yeah.
I would love to have kept up them.
One nice thing when they had the fantasy of IRWIN ALLEN, why Whit was in the motion picture Home, and Lee was familiar with how to be able to go out, pick him up. She had this van, and he had a wheelchair and everything. By golly, she was able to get him out of the home and bring him down to the shooting.
He really
And
was willing to come.
he didn't have a lot of time left, and so she took us to lunch at this lovely little Italian place, and then we go to the studio. And I would say 30 years peeled off of Whit in about 8 seconds. The minute that he rolled onto that set, and they had a tunnel there, and they had all the cameras and the cue card, whatever, and Whit just, boy, he just reverted back to a guy about 50 years old, and he sat up and he just spoke with such gusto and authority. It was just amazing. It always, I remember years ago, George go into the car, and then
the scene, you know, like this, and all that, and
it's amazing.
Incredible, it's incredible. They said, you know, and that's, I think that's wonderful.
He can talk.
We all keep that.
He can talk. You cured him. Oh, no, he did again. He did again. Good. Write him some more dialogue. Bring him back.
Any of the memories of when Victor, I just saw an episode recently where Victor Joy was on the series playing a pirate or something, and he takes you hostage, and it seems to me that watching the episode now, that he was kind of rough.
He was very rough.
Well, he was one of the strongest men in the world anyway.
Yes, he was famous here in Hollywood for being able to tear a phone book in half. But he was very strong, and he did. You were here when I told about being scraped up against the balustrade. One of the things that we had that showed another area of the tunnel, and my knees were just in shreds. The nylons are gone, of course, and all bloody down the front of the uniform. And he was very strong. He just didn't know how strong he was.
At 70
and he was
something.
lost in the character, and he was like this and holding me. And
you couldn't shake his hand at 70.
I had bruises.
And he used to hang with John Wayne and all those hard-drinking, rough old Western boys, and there wasn't anybody out there, Ward Bond, the toughest stuntman, the toughest wrangler, there wasn't anybody ever messed with Victor Joy. He was just one of those wiry pieces of steel that would just cut through, the wall. And he knocked out a few walls that I ever stood.
Oh, yes.
But the sweetest, and he had this enormous energy and vitality.
Dear man, really, but just very, very strong.
He could beat you up before you knew you were in a fight.
That's funny, Bob. Exactly. Well, I didn't know I was bleeding until someone told me. It's really bizarre. You get into the scene and you don't know that you've been hurt, or until.
What gave you the first cue when they said you were going to miss your legs around here?
Yeah, is that blood? That was my first clue.
The show was canceled so quickly. Did they ever consider utilizing funnel and trying to do maybe a TV movie, or that wasn't unheard of at that time, or some kind of thing? Because I know that everybody, when I was growing up, we were all pissed, real bad, and we're like, oh no, he's going to the Titanic again. Okay, here we go into reruns. So we always wanted some kind of an ending or something more to the show. And did they ever consider anything like that? Just they got all those props. Why didn't they do something?
I know.
The hardest thing was that we had been picked up, and while we're still before we finished our last 2 episodes, we were picked up in New York. Irwin was back there. We were all on the set out in the back lot one day, and one of the directors came over and said, well, Irwin just called from New York, and we're renewed for next year, and all the cheers went up, and we still had a few shows to do or so, and so then, had it been that we were canceled, we would have had some resolutions. But in as much as that we just terminated it at the end of the season, we expected to come back and pick it up. There was no reason or justification for any final.
What about afterwards? After the show was canceled?
Never was brought up.
No one ever brought it up.
Irwin always had so many projects.
Bob, years ago, not too long ago, thought that it might be a good idea to push it now to see if, because everyone was doing the movie of the weeks reruns of, I mean, not reruns, but, you know, revamps of the old series. Why not do it? And it was, well, you tell the story, because you called Irwin to get permission.
Did I? You must have been right after the second martini.
But it was, well, no,
What did he say to me?
but Mrs. Allen said that he had passed away.
Oh, yes, I called to see if he would want to do it again. She said he's dead. Put him on the phone, I said, I wish I could, she said. I said, well. That's right. I thought I had to talk with him.
That was so disheartening. Nothing would take our king of it after that. Yes, we might.
Since you only got one show lead and none of your scenes involved Bob or James, except for the pilot, I guess.
Well, there were a couple. There were a couple. I was kidnapped, which was called Kidnapped, and I spent time with them then. And I think another show where I spent time.
We had about twice.
Yeah, it was about twice or three times. Yeah. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
On your day of shoot, these guys need to be around. That would be
No.
a day off, or
That would be a day off for them.
so you really never really
No.
a couple times.
No, we didn't really. I didn't get to know Bob and Jimmy really all that well, except for the few times that we worked together. And then once we were finished, but that's why I'm so grateful to these memorabilia shows, because we've really become close friends now.
Yeah,
It's
you get to
been
meet your
wonderful.
co-star.
Yeah, get to know them.
I know, watching the fantasy world of Irwin Allen, James Darren said his favorite show was The Day the Sky Fell. What about you two? Do you either of you have a favorite episode?
That was mine, actually. I thought Jimmy did such a wonderful job in that show. I always, that was my favorite. And whether it was the twist of being able to come back and spot himself as a kid, I don't know, but there was just something about the show that touched me from the standpoint of being my favorite. It stands out.
It was well written. It was well done. It was a good show. I had fun being kidnapped. You know, that was of course a fun show for me because I got to do something other than where are they? I can't get them back.
How is it, I wonder, that he got so many nice people and talented people to work on his shows? There must have been something.
I had never met him before. I didn't know anything about him.
I think
But I liked it.
that gave Irwin his drive was the fact that Irwin was a fan.
Mm-hmm.
Irwin, I think, not that I know the history, I wish he had been able to join us, but he used to do a publication about celebrities and so forth, and he numbered among his friends Victor Mature and all these wonderful actors from the 40s and 50s, and they all were friends. Edward G. Robinson, these people didn't come by the set, Joseph Cotton, but Irwin was a fan. So being a fan, he sort of went from that fan club mentality into the production end of it. And he was always gathering people together. And I think that was one of the most wonderful things about our show was the anthology of every week having all these marvelous people that we've watched all our lives, over many years, and then be able to work with them, never know next week who was going to be there. And to meet these wonderful people and have a chance to do something with them, it was really marvelous.
Irwin didn't really spend all that much time coming down to the set.
Well, never.
No,
He directed pilots,
He directed
and you hardly ever see him again, which is why we worked so much.
He would say, rather occasionally audacious things, but he was just very pleasant most of the time.
Yeah,
He really wasn't.
yeah.
He was very eager to show his studio offices. He was very proud of them. And Paul Z, who unfortunately passed away, Zastupnovich, was he organized his office so it was like a museum, and he was very proud to show it off. And he was a pleasant man, just very sweet. He just got excited and volatile when filming, you know, certain scenes. That's what all I remember. I remember him just standing up on a ladder with a hammer and a bucket and going like this. All right, let's go, let's go, let's go. Come on, keep up that energy.
My clue to stop sleeping.
I've never seen a director.
Jeff, we're out of here.
On that happy note, let's wrap this up, ladies and gentlemen. Lee Merriweather, Howard Colbert.